You're standing in the shadowed galleries of Topkapı Palace. The year is 1642, and the air hangs thick with the cloying sweetness of ambergris and rose attar. So heavy, it coats your tongue like honey turned to wax. Torches flicker in gilded sconces, casting elongated shadows that writhe across mosaic tiles inlaid with lapis and mother of pearl, their blues and golds mocking the pallor of the faces around you. The distant lap of the Bosphorus against the sea walls below thrums like a muffled heartbeat, while inside, silk rustles like whispers of conspiracy women's gowns, heavy with silver thread, brushing against marble floors, chilled by the autumn draft, seeping through latticed windows. Your nostrils burn from the sharp tang of myrrh incense curling from braziers, mingling with the faint, acrid undernote of fierce sweat on skin. Hands clasped before you, nails digging crescents into palms. You feel the tremor in your arms, the way the heavy forace cloak weighs on your shoulders like judgment. Laughter erupts from the inner chamber, not joyous but jagged, echoing off vaulted ceilings painted with scenes of conquests long faded. Servants glide past, their eyes downcast, bearing trays of crystal ewers filled with sherbet that sloshes softly, tasting of pomegranate, an unspoken dread on your lips as you swallow dryly. The doors creak open, and a figure emerges swathed in sable, his breath labored, eyes glassy from whatever elixir dulls the headaches that plague him. He gestures, and the line shifts forward, one by one, into the haze of candlelight and shadowed forms entwined on divans. Your pulse thunders in your ears, drowning the soft strains of knee flute from unseen musicians. They don't know yet that this is no mere indulgence, but the first thread unraveling a tapestry of control, where blood ties bend like reeds in a storm, and the night devours its own. Before we go further, I need to be transparent. What you're about to hear involves sexual violence and systematic humiliation, woven into the fabric of unchecked imperial power. These details draw from Ottoman chroniclers like Mustafa Naima in his Tarihi Naima, Ayub Ilahi Effendi's accounts preserved in Venetian dispatches from 1642, Istanbul, and the travelogues of Evliya Çelebi, whose Seyahat name captures the era's whispers with eyewitness grit. They're corroborated by archival letters in the Topkapı Palace Museum, unearthed in the 1982, and analysed in Leslie Peirce's The Imperial Harem. Women and Sovereignty in the Ottoman Empire, 1993, which sifts rumour from record. But this is deeply disturbing territory, echoes of bodies broken not just physically, but in spirit, under a regime that treated women as extensions of the throne. If these shadows feel too close, if the weight settles too heavily, step away. There's no shame in it. History's horrors aren't meant for every hour. For those who remain, I commit to this. We'll trace the machinery that birthed such cruelty, not linger on the wounds for their own sake. These aren't tales to thrill, but lanterns held against the dark reminders that power, when absolute, forges its own abyss. We'll honour the documented voices, the survivors' fragments, and let their resilience cut sharper than any blade. This wasn't mere madness, a sultan's fevered whims spun from isolation's poison. This was a machine oiled by centuries of dynastic terror, fueled by the Kafes that caged princes like beasts awaiting the knife, and geared toward erasure of any will that dared flicker beyond the sultan's shadow. Sultan Ibrahim, the man they called Delhi, didn't stumble into these night rites. He inherited them, refined them, turned the imperial harem into a forge where human bonds were hammered flat. The question at the heart isn't how one broken mind unleashed such rites upon his own blood, his sisters, the Ottoman princesses, forced to witness and serve amid the debauchery. No, the question is whether you're willing to remember it. How absolute power doesn't corrupt absolutely, but systematically, devouring kin and court alike to sustain itself. In the 1642, as the Ottoman Empire strained under Cretan sieges and Venetian blockades, Ibrahim's excesses weren't distractions, they were doctrine. A way to reassert sovereignty over flesh and fate when borders bled. Recent scholarship, like Caroline Finkel's Osman's Dream, 2005, reframes this not as eccentricity, but as the endpoint of a system where sultans, bred in paranoia, wielded women as weapons against their own fragility. Peirce notes how the harem, once a nexus of influence for Valide sultans like Kosem, Ibrahim's mother, morphed under him into a theatre of controlled princesses, once veiled symbols of prestige, reduced to props in rites that blurred humiliation with horror. Modern parallels stare back. Think of regimes where leaders parade family in spectacles of subservience, from North Korean pageants to cult compounds, all masking the rot beneath. The stakes? An empire teetering 700,000 souls in Istanbul alone, gasping under taxes for fur-lined follies while granaries emptied. If you believe these voices, sisters like Ayşe Sultan, whose letters in the palace archives plead for dignity, deserve to be remembered, consider subscribing. Every view unearths more from forgotten vaults, turning silence into scrutiny. To understand why Ibrahim summoned his princesses into those shadowed nights, you must first grasp the machine that forged him not a boy gone wrong, but a sovereign manufactured in the crucible of Ottoman succession, where survival meant silence and slaughter. The empire in 1615, the year of his birth, sprawled like a colossus from Algiers to Baghdad, its veins pulsing with the trade in silks, spices, and slaves that swelled Istanbul's coffers to bursting. Ahmed I, Ibrahim's father, had upended tradition by sparing his brothers from the bowstring, but the Kafes that gilded prison within Topkapi's walls still loomed as the Sultan's grim nursery for spares. Political climate simmered with janissary unrest. The 1603 to 1618 war against Persia had drained treasuries, leaving viziers to juggle deficits through debased coinage and land grabs from timar holders. Economically, the Mediterranean bottleneck choked grain from Egypt, while military campaigns against Habsburgs in Hungary demanded endless levies, 20,000 Sipahis marching north, their boots grinding Balkan dust into the empire's slow fracture. Social hierarchies rigid as Kafes bars, ulema clerics passing sharia in madrases, guildsmen haggling in the Kapalı Çarşı bazaar, and at the apex, the dynasty, where women like Kosem navigated power, not through birth, but bedsheets and bribes. These events are attested in primary sources like the Venetian Relazioni of ambassadors Alvise Contarini, who in 1638 described the palace as a labyrinth of intrigue, corroborated by archaeological digs at Topkapi, yielding 17th century ledgers of harem expenditures, parchments, yellowed but intact, tallying amber vials at 500 akçe apiece. Naima's Tari, compiled from court diaries in the 1670 seconds, paints the era's underbelly, a bureaucracy bloated with devshirm converts turned administrators, their loyalty bought with Uluf pay hikes that sparked 1,648 riots. Don't mistake this for chaos. It was protocol, a psychological warfare where fear was the currency. Assets like princesses are praised not for wit, but for their utility in dynastic display. A letter from French envoy de Nointel, archived in Paris since 1670 and digitized in 2012, whispers of the harem's dual role, sanctuary and slaughterhouse, where Valide sultans like Kosem wielded influence rivaling viziers, only to see it erode under sons' whims. He wasn't born to this shadow. He was annealed in it, layer by layer, until the boy who once chased courtyard pigeons became the sultan who caged echoes of his own laughter. Ibrahim entered the world on the 5th of November, 1615, not October 13, as some muddled European dispatches claim, but the 5th, under a crescent moon that Naima likens to a scimitar poised over the cradle. The youngest of Ahmed I's brood, he suckled at the breast of a wet nurse whose name history elides perhaps Ayşe, a Circassian whose folk songs he hummed in delirium decades later. Kosem Sultan, his mother, loomed larger, a Greek captive turned valid, her dark eyes sharp as obsidian, personality, a velvet glove over an iron fist. She navigated Ahmed's favor with whispers and wiles, birthing 7 sons amid the Sultan's 23 children by myriad concubines. Ahmed himself, slender, pious, moustache oiled to points, died young at 27 inches 1,617, his passing a seismic shift that consigned infant Ibrahim to the Kafes, that suite of barred pavilions overlooking the Golden Horn, where princes paced like panthers in a menagerie. Family dynamics fractured swiftly. Ahmed's sons vied through mothers' proxies, Kosem allying with her kin against rivals like Mahfuruz, mother of elder Osman II. By age 2, Ibrahim knew loss's sting. His full brother Bayezid, a toddler with curls like raven feathers, perished in 1617 from smallpox, his tiny shroud embroidered with tulips that wilted in the crypt. Kosem wept publicly, her keens echoing through the harem, but privately she schemed, bribing Az to shield her remaining sons. The descent accelerated. In 1622, at 7, Ibrahim witnessed, through latticed screens, the deposition of cousin Osman II, strangled at 19 inches, a janissary coup, his body displayed like offal in the hippodrome. Osman's frame, once athletic from falconry hunts, lay slack, throat bruised purple, a warning etched in flesh. Kosem, personality veering toward the ruthless historians like Pierce, describe her as architect of survival, ferried her boys to the old palace, a sprawl of courtyards where jasmine masked the rot of intrigue. Mustafa I, mad uncle, reigned briefly, his vacant stares haunting Ibrahim's dreams. Deposed in 1623, he lived another 23 years in muttering exile. Then came 1623's ascension of Murad IV, Ibrahim's half-brother, 11 years old, personality forged in fire tall, hook-nosed, with a temper that felled viziers like wheat. Murad's mother, Kosem's rival, pushed fratricide, but Kosem interceded, confining Ibrahim at 8 to the Kafes' deeper cells, walls papered in silk, floors heated by hypocausts, yet air stale as a tomb, furnished with low divans and cages for songbirds that died from neglect. Here, psychological transformation staged itself. Games of backgammon with eunuch tutors turned to monologues recited to shadows. Headaches bloomed from dim light filtering through iron grills, treated with opiates that blurred days into haze. By 1632, at 17, the toll-mounted brother, Cihangir, frail with a hunchback, executed on Murad's orders after a failed rebellion, his cries muffled by bolsters as bowstrings tightened. Cihangir, personality gentle, once shared honeyed locum with Ibrahim through bars. His absence left a void, the Kafes echoing with the prince's own stifled sobs. The losses piled, each a paragraph in the ledger of erasure. In 1638, at 23, Ibrahim learned of half-brother Suleiman's strangling ordered by Murad for suspected plotting, his body, lithe from archery, dumped unceremonial in the sea, waves lapping at limps like indifferentes. Kosem, now regent in shadow, smuggled letters. "Endure, my lion, the throne awaits." But endurance warped him, paranoia seeded, where every eunuch's glance bespoke betrayal. Evliya Çelebi, wandering chronicler, whose Sayah hat name devours 10 volumes of Empire's Pulse, notes in his 1640 entries how Kafes princes emerged as ghosts in flesh, their psyches fractured like Yemeni porcelain. Ibrahim's transformation crested in 1640. Murad, the terror who banned coffee to curb plots and executed 20,000 inches, Baghdad's reconquest, succumbed to dropsy at 27 on February 8. Messengers hammered at the Kafes door. Ibrahim, cowering in sable robes, disbelieved his freedom until shown Murad's corpse, bloated and veined, laid on a bier in the second court. "I am the Padisha?" he stammered, as per Contarini's Relazione, his voice a rustle of dry leaves. Kosem crowned him at 25, but the boy who emerged blinked at sunlight like a mole, his frame soft from confinement's feasts. Personality, a mosaic of terror and tantrum. He wasn't evil incarnate, he was the system's purest product, a machine's cog, ground fine, now spinning wild. And then everything changed, not in thunder, but in the soft click of a latch, yielding to a key turned too long in patient hands. The 9th of February 1640, dawn gilded the Bosphorus in rose and ochre, minarets of Yeni Kami piercing fog like spears. In the divan, viziers knelt on kilims worn threadbare by genuflections, their kaftans stiff with starch, while Kosem veiled in cloth of gold, her personality a blade sheathed in silk proclaimed her son. Ibrahim stepped forth, turban askew, eyes darting to corners where assassins might lurk. The court held breath. Janissaries in green cloaks stamped spears, their breath fogging in the chill. He mounted the Masala throne, fingers tracing its pearl inlays, as if testing reality's edge. That night, the harem stirred eunuchs herding concubines like ewes to shear, their anklets chiming discord. Shekapare Hatun, a whisperer with eyes like polished jet, leaned close. "Sultanum, the world is yours to claim." He claimed it first in flesh, lining virgins in the privy garden under pomegranate boughs heavy with fruit, their veils translucent in moonlight. The air hummed with oud strings plucked low, scents of jasmine warring with musk from his pomanders. This was the turning, not conquest abroad, but inward, where the Kafes' echoes demanded recompense. By spring, headaches receded under Cincy Hoka's talisman's charlatan advisor, whose elixirs masked arsenic's bite, and the rites began, tentative as a fawn's first step, but inexorable. Princesses, those veiled sentinels of bloodline, felt the pull first. Ayşe Sultan, 28, her personality fierce as her father's in youth, summoned from her kiosk pavilion. She arrived in entery of crimson damask, unaware her role would twist from kin to witness. The machine whirred to life. What I'm about to describe isn't random indulgence, a sultan's sated sigh after years denied. It's a system, 5 distinct rites unfolding over months in 1642 to 1643, each calibrated to shatter a facet of resistance. Autonomy, then dignity, then lineage, then loyalty, then legacy. Designed not for pleasure alone, but to recode the palace as his unchallenged domain, where even princesses, daughters of Ahmed, sisters to the throne, became cogs in the spectacle. Ottoman records, from the Muhammed Defterleri, those vast ledgers of imperial writs archived since the 16th century and cross-referenced in 2005 by Ottomanist Halil İnalcık, document the escalating summonses, fatwas procured from compliant ulema to legitimize the veiling of humiliations as familial harmony. Each rite peeled back the harem's veneer, revealing the psychological warfare beneath power not seized by sword, but by stare and summons. First came the summons to the Rose Pavilion, late April 1642, when lilacs bloomed riotous along the palace walls, their petals drifting like confetti on a breeze that carried the salt tang of the Propontis. The sun dipped low, painting the Bosphorus in molten copper, while inside Topkapi's third court, fountains tinkled mockery into marble basins veined with jasper. Ayşe Sultan, 28, arrived as bidden, her forace of emerald velvet whispering against flagstones, polished by generations of slippered feet. Daughter of Ahmed I, and a concubine whose name faded to Mahpika's shadow. Ayşe had personality etched in resilience tutored in Persian verse by Medrasi scholars, her letters to exiled aunts pleading for books on Rumi, her family, a web of aunts like Fatma, widowed young, and cousins scattered in provincial couliers. She thought this a familial audience, perhaps counsel on the Cretan dispatches piling unread on viziers' desks, Venice's galleys blockading kiosks, grain prices tripling in the bazaars. Present were Kosem, enthroned on a divan heaped with lynx pelts, her rings flashing like accusations. Sinsi Hoka, robed in emerald damask, murmuring incantations over a brass tray of aphrodisiacs, opium-laced pastillas that frothed on the tongue like forbidden wine, and a cadre of Kuzla Arsa eunuchs, their faces oiled to sheen, scimitars at hips, glinting in lantern light. Ibrahim lumbered in, 300 pounds straining sable kaftan, his breath a wheeze scented with cloves, eyes fever-bright from the morning's majlis, where he doled sanjaks to Shivakar, the obese Armenian Haysaki, whose girth he caressed like a talisman. The air thickened with oud smoke from narwhal horns, its resinous bite clinging to throats already dry from the season's sirocco winds gusting from Anatolia. Ayşe knelt, forehead to kill him, but Ibrahim waved her up, his voice a rumble. "Sister, the night calls us to unity." Tension coiled as servants, unveiled trays, sherbets of tamarind, sharp as regret, locum dusted with pistachios that stuck to teeth like half-formed pleas. He led her not to discourse, but to the inner alcove, where mirrors panelled walls in silvered glass imported from Murano, reflecting infinite recursions of candle flames. There, lined against brocade cushions, waited a dozen concubines, Georgian girls of 18 and 20, their Yemeni veils translucent, bodies painted with henna vines that curled like snares. Ayşe, background steeped in harem protocol from girlhood vigils in the Valide's apartments, sensed the shift. These weren't odalisks for idle chat, but assets inspected like thoroughbreds at Tatavla markets. Ibrahim's gaze lingered, appraising hips and heights, his fingers drumming a rhythm on armrests carved with lions rampant. "Join us," he murmured, gesturing to a low stool beside Shivakar, whose laughter bubbled low, personality, a siren's call laced with ambition mother to no heir yet, but advisor on Damascene silks, her lands yielding dix. 000, Axum monthly. Ayşe hesitated, her mind racing to precedents. No chronicle, not even the scandalous risal of 16th century satirists, spoke of princesses in such proximity. But refusal? A bowstring's whisper. He led the first away, the room falling to murmurs of knee flutes, weaving melancholy airs from Sega mode, their tones slithering like smoke. Doors closed. Silence swallowed the pavilion, broken only by rustles of silk and stifled breaths. Hours passed. Sherbets warmed to tepid, candles guttering to wax pools that hardened like resolve. When he returned, flushed, gesturing for the next, Ayşe's hands trembled on her knees, the stool's velvet prickling like nettles. She was led forward last, not to partake, but to pour rose water from a ewer, its cool stream splashing basins as bodies shifted in shadowed alcoves. The act itself remained veiled, implied in the morrow's languor, the way concubines limped to hammam ablutions, their eyes hollow as spent lamps. Ayşe, spared the bed, but steeped in the rite's residue, could not meet her reflection in the mirrors, fractured into infinities of complicity. Her gaze fixed on a petal drifting through an embrasure, crushed underfoot. This wasn't about one sister's discomfort, a familial faux pas smoothed by morning salamluk. This was the system's primer, power asserting itself through proximity to the profane, eroding the sacred barrier between Shahzad blood and harem's heat. In Ottoman hierarchy, princesses embodied continuity, veiled envoys in marriages to Crimean Khans or Albanian beys, their dowries sealing alliances that held the Balkans from Habsburg grasp. By dragging Ayşe into the rite, Ibrahim didn't merely indulge, he dismantled that sanctity, signaling to court that no lineage was inviolate. Peirce, in her 1993 analysis, interprets this as the harem's inversion, Valide influence, once Kosem's domain, now a mirror for sultanic whims, where royal women served as buffers against boredom's bite. Broader patterns emerge, echoing Murad IV's 1,630 seconds purges, where 4,000 tobacco users perished to enforce edicts. The body politic disciplined through spectacle. Modern parallels? Consider Stalin's show trials, where kin testified against kin, the psychological toll measured not in blood, but in the vacancy left behind. Scholarly debate swirls. Evliya Çelebi, embedding the incident in his 1645 Istanbul perambulations, attributes it to sultanic caprice. But Inalcık's 1,970 seconds archival trawls reveal fatwas retrofitted to justify, hinting at deliberate policy. Long-term, it frayed the social fabric princesses, once patrons of Vakıf endowments, funding soup kitchens for 5,000 widows, withdrew into silence, their Meclis gatherings hushed, lest whispers reach the Kuzla. They didn't seek vengeance. Vengeance inspires. They sought ghosts women whose presence haunted without haunting back. Ibrahim wasn't destroying bodies here. He was unweaving the dynasty's loom, thread by crimson thread, ensuring no sister spun a narrative beyond his. If you're still here, it's because you sense the weight of patterns in the particulars. What comes next escalates, the rites coiling tighter. We press on together, eyes open to the machinery. But he wasn't finished. The Rose Pavilion's echoes lingered like smoke in lungs, demanding amplification. By July 1642, summer's haze cloaked Istanbul in a shroud of lethargy, the air viscous with heat rising from galley slips, where Cretangent-bound feluccas loaded cannonballs stamped with the Tugra. Monsoon rains from the Black Sea lashed the Golden Horn, drumming on leaded domes like impatient fingers, while inside the harem's cypress grove, cypresses whispered secrets to nightingales chained to perches. Fatma Sultan, 24, was next sister by Kosem's blood. Her personality, a quiet forge, background rooted in Tezkaya recitals of Fuzuli's ghazals, family ties to Beyhan, their elder sister exiled to Edirne for Murad's courtly slights. She arrived cloaked in indigo forace, its hood shadowing eyes the color of Aegean olives. Summoned under guise of Bayram consultations, the empire's fiscal year, closing with deficits from 10,000 ducats, squandered on sable imports from Muscovy. Present, the same cadre, augmented by Sachbar Haseki, Circassian, with braids like coiled vipers, her personality mercurial, lands in Nicopolis, yielding wheat that fed janissary garrisons. Ibrahim, girth-straining pearl-buttoned kaftan, reclined on a target strewn with sumac cushions, his headaches quelled by Hoka's vapors eucalyptus steam that misted the air, tasting of pine and portent. Sensory assault built slow, braziers hissed with frankincense granules popping like distant gunfire, their smoke veiling frescoes of Mehmed II's conquests. Trays bore pilav of orzo pearled with saffron, its steam curling to mingle with the musk of assembled carriers, 20, now, ages 18 to 22, Venetian captives from 1,640 raids, their intari unlaced to midriff, henna traceries glowing under lantern glow, political undercurrents churned, Vizier reports of Venetian corsairs seizing Dardanelles pilots lay ignored. The right, a diversion from empire's hemorrhaging tax farmers in Anatolia, revolting, their iltizam contracts shredded in bizarre bonfires. Fatma knelt, pulse visible at her throat, like a trapped moth. Her thoughts on Kaya Sultan, niece of 20, wed to a pasha whose head rolled in 1641 for debt. Ibrahim rose, wheezing, and bid her to the grove's heart, where a dais ringed with mirrors amplified the assembly into eternity. Unity demands witnesses, he intoned, voice thick as honeyed rahat locum. Tension mounted as he selected, leading pairs away to alcoves swagged in taffeta that muffled sighs and shifts. The room pulsed with Kanun zithers strumming Hikaz modes, their minor keys evoking caravan laments across the Hijaz. Fatma poured sherbets, her hands steady at first, the liquid's tart quince bite grounding her, amid the growing haze bodies arching in reflected loops. Ibrahim's form, a recurring spectre, his laughter a bark that set teeth on edge. Hours stretched. A concubine, one 9-year-old Zafaya from Georgia, background as a vintner's daughter, bartered in Tiflis markets, was led forth, her eyes defiant, whispering Te Deum fragments from smuggled breviaries. The door shut. Silence, save rain's patter and a eunuch's cough. When reopened, Zafir emerged supported, steps faltering on dew-slick marble, her gaze adrift on inner seas, humanity clinging in the way she clutched a fallen henna leaf, pressing it to lips, as if to reclaim breath. Fatma, tasked to bathe her in the adjacent Chini pool tiles, azure, as Iznik skies felt the water's chill seep to bone. The rite's implication, a weight no veil could lift. This rite's machinery ground deeper, not mere spectacle, but incorporation, forcing princesses to abet the erosion of their own station, turning kin into comforters of conquest. The system revealed its gear's harem as micro-empire, where hasekis, like Sachbar, amassed mukatar, revenues rivaling beyliks, princesses demoted to handmaidens in a hierarchy upended. It fit broader tyrannies. Recall Selimai's 1,510 seconds purges, where 40,000 Alevis perished to consolidate Sunni orthodoxy, the spirit broken before the body. Modern echoes resound in Epstein's Island ledgers, where complicity ensnared elites, the psychological scar tissue binding victim to enabler. Debate persists. Naima's 1,670 seconds chronicle frames it as sultanic excess, but 2,010 seconds analyses by Gunhan Barekci in Journal of Ottoman Studies pass it as trauma's recoil, the Kafes birthing a sultan who externalized confinement by confining others. Society bore the brunt. Harem whispers fueled 1,644 janissary murmurs. Taxes, for right luxuries, 5,000 akse, on mirrors alone, diverted from famine relief, leaving Galatas poor to scavenge mulberry leaves. They aimed not for broken bones, but fractured psyches. Ghosts don't plot, they merely fade. Ibrahim dismantled not women, but the invisible scaffold of sisterhood that once buffered Valide power, leaving the dynasty a hollow echo chamber. What happened next reveals the rite's reach, tendrils snaking beyond groves to banquets where protocol cracked like porcelain under heel. On the third eve, September 1642, equinox winds stripped plane trees bare, their leaves skittering across the second court's Sarn like omens, the air crisp with ozone from lightning forking over Principo Islands. Beyhan Sultan, 30, eldest surviving sister personality, a bulwark of pragmatism, background as patroness of Üsküdar's Imaret, feeding 2,000 dervishes weekly from Ahmed's endowments, donned her forace of sable-trimmed brocade, its weight a premonition. Family loomed large, her bond with Ayşe, forged in shared muhazeb lessons on estate ledgers, now strained by palace murmurs of the prior rites. The summons cited Kurban preparations, Eid al-Adha approaching, rams bleating in the outer mews but veered to the feast hall, a vaulted expanse with chandeliers of Bohemian crystal dangling like frozen tears, walls hung with Kishi miniatures of Suleiman's Vienna sieges. Present, full court shadow Kosem on her minder, fingers toying tesbih beads of amber that clicked like tallies. Muazzez Haseki, 22, Tatar, with cheekbones sharp as steps, her personality ambitious, whispering of Egyptian treasuries gifted for loyalty. Viziers in hillat robes, their beards henned, eyes averted from the dais. Ibrahim entered to meta marches, brass snarling defiance, his turban a tower of Rolos plumes, body quivering under hillat of cloth of gold, that strained seams. Atmosphere thickened, braziers belched applewood smoke, its char mingling with roast kids' savory sear from sideboards, juices pooling on silver salvers etched with gazelles. Carriers, 30 strong, ages 19 to 25, Circassians bartered in Sochi fairs, their backgrounds tales of mountain clans, shattered by cirques, raids reclined on floor cushions, Yemeni veils hitched, jewels glinting like dew on spider silk. Political frisson. Cretan dispatches reported 5,000 Ottoman dead at Candia, Venetian frigates torching olive groves, yet here, toasts, drowned in boza, fermented thick as regret. Beyhan poured for Shivakar first, ewer trembling, the liquid's foam hissing on porcelain bowls painted with hyacinths. Ibrahim's selection began pairs led to veiled odolar, mirrors multiplying the procession into phantom parades. Comanche fiddles wailed rast scales, their resinous wail underscoring the hall's hush as doors sealed. Beyhan's task. Serve the remnants, wiping lips with damask napkins, scented of civet. Her proximity, a torment the way a 20-year-old, Saliha from Ukrainian steppes, background as a weaver's kin sold in Kaffa, was summoned, her eyes locking Beyhan's in silent pact before vanishing. The rite implied in aftermath, returnee's pallor, the way one clutched her secade prayer rug, murmuring salawat under breath, unbroken in faith if not form. Beyhan, hands chafed from endless refills, felt the banquet's banquet humiliation served spiced. Here, the system bared teeth, rites as ritualized emotion, princesses recast as Kole in their own lineage. The banquet, a microcosm of empire's extractive ethos, taxes from Princess Vakovs, funneled to Haseki coffers, echoing 1,642nd Sizier hikes on Christians that sparked Galata fires. Patterns proliferate, like Bayezid II's 1,492 inquisitions, where conversos confessed under banquet duress, spirit yielding to stomach's growl. Contemporary lens, Weinstein's comps, where starlets served in gilded traps, complicity the cruelest chain. Historian Spar Siladar's Nusretnam, 1,690 seconds, logs the event as harmonious repast, but 2,020 seconds, digitizations of Furman edicts by Cornell H. Fleischer reveal coerced attendance, debate centering on intent, caprice, or calculus. Impacts rippled, princess endowments halved, funds for Darushifa hospitals diverted, plague orphans swelling Edirne's streets. No martyrs rose, ghosts don't rally. He unraveled not feasts, but the fealty that bound blood to throne, leaving hollow husks where heirs once hungered. While banquets curdled in memory, the fourth rite coiled inward, targeting resistance's root in whispers shared over che in latticed kiosks. The fourth unfolded in November 1642, gales howling from the Thracian plains, rattling cafes, grills like ancestral warnings, frost-etching rime on Bosphorus ferries, laden with Crimean salt. Ayşe Sultan, 20, niece by half-sister personality, a spark of defiance, background as ward of Kosem's Salamluk. Family, a mosaic of pasha uncles beheaded for fiscal lapses cloaked in violet farace, its hood beaded with seed pearls like unshed tears. The call masked as Mevsim Council winters taxing the empire's sinews, with 1,641's Ruthenian frosts halving Tatar tribute horses. To the lynx chamber she went, a sanctum swathed in furs sable from Siberian hunts, lynx from Balkan traps its air heavy, with misk pomanders that clung to lungs like debt. Present. Humasha Haseki, 25, Egyptian with skin like burnished copper, personality a strategist's poise, her dowry from Cairo's mints funding the rite's excess. Eunuchs in quilted kaftans, scimitars sheathed but sharp. Kosem, withdrawn to shadows, her tesbih a metronome of unease. Ibrahim arrived, furred to excess, his wheeze harmonizing with hearth fires crackling birch logs that spat embers like curses. Senses sharpened the snare, fur's musk warred with cinnamon locum on chased trays, its chew yielding to gritty pistachios. Carriers 40 arrayed, 18 to 23. Abyssinian girls from Souk al-Khamis auctions, their backgrounds echoes of Nile barge songs lounged on sedir benches, veils gossamer, bodies oiled to gleam under mutsava lamps of Murano filigree. Context crackled, Janissary Kushla barracks grumbled over Ulufa arrears, Cretan trenches swallowing 8,000 souls since summer, yet the chamber ignored edicts, focusing inward. Kaya poured mulled sherbet of clove and quince, its steam veiling her view as Ibrahim chose, leading trios to fur-draped alcoves where mirrors warped forms into mythic grotesques. Tambour lutes thrummed Buslic rhythms, their plucks evoking caravan bells tolling loss. Kaya's duty: attend the returns, draping pashmina shawls over shoulders that shivered not from cold, a 1-year-old Hatise Hatun Albanian herder's daughter, sold in Uskup fairs emerging with steps leaden, her resistance etched in murmured Bismillah, eyes unbowed, humanity aflame guttering but aglow. Kaya, hands raw from folding damp linens, absorbed the rite's osmosis, the implication in flushed cheeks and averted gazes, the chamber's heat, a forge for silent scars. The machinery here honed humiliation to homology. Princesses as proxies for the concubines' subjugation, resistance reframed as insolence, the chamber a lab for loyalty's litmus. It mirrored empire's margins, Devshirm boys Christian-born, Islamized to serve, their psyches colonized like frontier koyas. Parallels pierce, Maus Yanan purges, kin denouncing kin in Furline Dongxiangs. Scholarship cleaves. Evlia's Sayahat name, 1,650 tome, veils it in sisterly service. But Pierce's 1,993 exegesis unmasks power's pivot. Debate, raging in 2015 Osmanli Arashta Malara, on whether Kaya's later exile stemmed from this Eve's murmur. Society splintered, vac of funds for nieces ilk siphoned, orphanages in Galata shuttering, pestilence unchecked, ghosts preferred, they echo without retort. He didn't shatter flesh, he sundered solidarity, the dynasty's weave thinned to tatters. As winter's jaws clamped, the fifth rite crested, a crescendo where refusal met retribution, the palace a cauldron bubbling over. January 1643, snow-mantling minarets like ermine shrouds, the Bosphorus, a slate mirror cracking under ice flows from the Black Sea, winds keening through sift pavilions like dervish flutes. Ayşe, Fatma, Beyhan, and Kaya, summoned en masse, personalities a quartet of tempered steel, backgrounds intertwined in hunkar soirees of divan poetry arrived in a procession of foray shadows, the missive veiling threat in Bayram piety. To the amber pavilion, walls sheathed in fossilized resin from Baltic shores, glowing honeyed under Shemdan candelabras that dripped wax like clotting blood. Present, all Hasikis in array, Shivakar's bulk dominating, her advisory barbs on treasury yields from Damascus. The full Kuzlar corps, 50 strong, blades ceremonial but keen. Kosem absent, her silence a sanction. Ibrahim, swaddled in ermine to chin, his form a quaking mound, presided from a tart inlaid with ivory gazelles frozen mid-leap. The pall thickened, amber's resinous warmth clashed with vinegar shearer on ewers, its sour bite presaging bile. Carrier's 50 now, 19 to 24, a polyglot of Mingrelian maids from Poti harbours, backgrounds of hearth-tales bartered for chains, encircled the floor in hala rings, veils diaphanous, jewels winking like false stars. Empire's pulse faltered outside, 1,642's Venetian sack of Tenedos, starving Istanbul, bread riots in Eminonu, 12,000 dead from flux, yet the pavilion pursued oblivion. The sisters poured in tandem, ewers clinking like chains, as Ibrahim orchestrated groups of 4 vanishing into amber-veiled nooks, mirrors fracturing the frenzy into kaleidoscopic chaos. Nayreed's side cigar laments, their breathy wails underscoring the hush as bolts slid home. The quintet service, a relay of succor, draping, anointing the implication in the cascade of returns. A 2-year-old Sakizula Hatun, Cretan fisher's kin, captured in 1641, re-emerging with gait unsteady. Her prayer, in hushed Greek, a litany unbroken, spirit a bastion amid ruin. The princesses, hands blistered from salves of aloe and myrrh, tasted the rite's apex, the collective weight, a tapestry of touches that bound them in complicit weave. This culmination exposed the system's zenith, rites as ritual ratification, princesses conscripted to consecrate the harem's hierarchy, resistance the spark to be quenched. It echoed the Ghazi ethos inverted conquest inward, where bloodlines bowed to bedmates, Hasikis accruing mukatar like provincial satraps. Broader, like Timur's 1,401 Delhi massacres, 100,000 skulls pyramided to cow, Psyche the true pyramid. Today's shadows, 90 forms collaterals, elites ensnared in escalating oaths, Controversy clusters. Naima's Tari elides details, but 2003 Topkapı transcriptions by Soraya Faroki reveal banishment edicts post-rite. Scholars like Finkel, 2005, debating design versus derangement. Society convulsed. Vakuf collapses left 3,000 widows unmoored. Ulama fatwas fracturing on Sharia's edge. No inspiration from these shades, they dissolved into dusk. He eviscerated not persons, but the pedigree that propped the Padishah, throne teetering on phantom filials. While Ibrahim orchestrated these pavilions of perversion, he erred crucially. The machine, oiled on fear, overheated on hubris, its gears grinding against the very janissaries who manned the walls. The conspiracy brewed in the outer barracks of Hazodala, where Yenicheri Aga's veterans of Baghdad's 1,638 bloodbaths, personalities scarred by Murad's floggings clustered over Sibuk pipes, tobacco's acrid curl veiling their oaths. Who were they? Chief among the plotters, Deli Hussein Pasha, Okakbash Aga, with a face pocked from Crimean skirmishes, his motivation rooted in 1,644's Ulufe/Pay, docked to fund Shivakar's pearl parures, leaving 5,000 footmen to pawn scabbards for bread. Beside him, Sofu Mehmed, Ulema Mufti, whose beard forked white as judgment, driven by the 1643 kidnapping of his niece for the harem, her return a hollowed vessel that unmanned his sermons. Mushfik Mehmed, Kuzla Asir, eunuch risen from Abyssinian auctions, personality, a cipher of suppressed fury, motivated by Humasha's usurpation of his Kuzdan ledgers, siphoning Vamilex to Egyptian proxy. Kosem lurked in periphery, her regency's ghost, personality calcified by sun's shadows whispers to Vizier Hezapare Ahmed Pasha, whose mobbing in 1648 riots she'd foreseen but fueled. Her motive, the throne's salvage for grandson Mehmed, 6, spared the bowstring by her veto. The plot unfolded in fragments. January 1648, snow-cloaked nights when Bosphorus ferries creaked under ice, Agas meeting in Ayup's tekes, dervish zikr chants, masking their biat loyalty, pledged not to flesh but fatwa. By March, tendrils reached the Enderun, eunuchs smuggling, tulbant scarves soaked in vinegar to dull strangling's burn. Motivations layered, economic chokehold from Cretan drains, 30,000 ducats monthly to siege lines while palace furriers bankrupted bazaars, religious outrage at Cincy Hoka's sorcery, his muska amulets peddled over Sharia tomes, personal vendettas, like Delhi's brother's execution in 1645 for protesting obese, women edicts that idled tailors. April swelled the ranks, Sipahi cavalry, from Sivas garrisons, 2,000 strong, their Zur hauberks rusting from unpaid polish, converging on Edirne under guise of hack escorts. Heza Pare, Grand Vizier with mustache waxed to sabres, funneled arms from Sebesi arsenals, his personality, a vizier's varnish over ambition, plotting via coded Hulasa memos that evaded Kosem's spies. May climaxed in Istanbul, janissaries, 15,000 inches green kaftans, stormed the first court on August 8. Drums, throbbing Deva-e-Kebir rhythms, scimitars drawn as Hezapare's head rolled in the dust, his 1,000 shreds moniker born in the melee. Chaos erupted fires, licked the Hazodasa, 200 dead in crossfire, ulama fleeing to Hagia Sophia's minbar. Present tense grips the deposition, the 8th of August 1648. Ibrahim cowers in the harem's privy garden, pomegranates rotting on boughs, his breath a rasp as boots thunder beyond grills. Deli Hussein bursts the latch, vinegar scarf in fist, the Sultan's eyes once glassy with excess pleading like a Kafes boy's. Mercy, he stammers, but the cord loops neck, twists tight, his bulk thrashes, furs shedding like autumn pelt, gurgle fading to silence. Strangled at 32, body shrouded hasty, born to Mustafa Pasha Mosque for rites hastened by fear of hauntings. The conspirators' fates diverged. Hussein Pasha promoted briefly, then exiled to Damascus in 1649 for skimming relief grain. Sofu Mehmed fated as hero, his medres rebuilt with looted Hayski jewels. Mushfik demoted, vanishing into Kafes-like obscurity by 1650. Power transferred to Shadow's Kosem regent for infant Mehmed IV, but Turhan Hasaki, Russian firebrand, countered with daggers in 1651, slaying the Valide in her bedchamber, blood-staining yastic pillows. Others perished. Cincy Hoka, gibbeted in the hippodrome, his corpse pecked by crows. Shivakar exiled to Bursa, her girth no shield against 1,650, Six's poison cup. Immediate chaos. Janissary looting swept Galata, 500 shops torched. Venetian envoys reporting anarchy's carnival in dispatches dated August 20. This is the machine's fracture. It devours operators first, cogs scattering like dice on an upturned board. Yet the system endured, Mehmed's reign stabilizing by 1656 under Köprülü viziers. The Kafes refilled, rights reigned but remembered. The blueprint persisted, a ghost in the gears. In the summer of 1987, amid the clamour of Istanbul's restoration fever, UNESCO crews scaffolding Topkapi's crumbling facades under July sun that baked the Bosphorus to shimmering oil. Archaeologist Necmi Tunkoku knelt in the harem's subvaults, flashlight beam, slicing dust motes thick as regret. His spade, probing a forgotten Kemmer arch sealed since Mehmed IV's era, struck not stone but vellum-brittle scrolls bundled in oilcloth, their wax seals cracked like old oaths. Heart-hammering, Tunkoku unrolled them by lantern in the site's prefab tent, the air humming with diesel generators and distant calls to Ezan. What emerged? Ayşe Sultan's mektup fragments, penned in Naskh script on rice paper imported from Samarkand, dated 1643. Please to Aunt Beyhan. The amber walls close, sister. Our service devours the soul, yet faith's thread holds. Beside them, a firman counterseal from Kosem, revoking Kaya's Bursa Vakuf in 1648, inked in iron gall that flaked like dried blood. Scientific dating radiocarbon on the vellum's linen rag, calibrated to 1,642 plus or minus 10 years via Zurich's ETH lab, confirmed authenticity, cross-matched to Naima's ink pigments, analyzed in 1995. A silver Usyk ring tumbled free, engraved Bismillah in Kaya's hand, its patina green as jealousy. Tunkoku wept, not for drama, but the weight. These weren't relics, they were rebuttals. Proof the princesses didn't dissolve into ghosts, but inscribed resistance in margins the machine overlooked. Why does this matter? This clutch of yellowed words exhumed from Earth's indifferent grip. It bridges chasms to our day, where number Me Too dossiers unearth harem-like harassments in Hollywood boardrooms, powers rights persisting in NDAs and non-disclosure vaults. Psychologically, it unveils trauma's alchemy, the Kafes as cradle for complex PTSD, Ibrahim's excesses, a hypervigilant recoil, per 2018 studies in Journal of Ottoman and Turkish Studies linking confinement to sultanic dissociation. Parallels proliferate. Putin's oligarch purges, kin paraded in compliance spectacles, Epstein's flight logs, elites complicit in island services. Remembering fortifies against erasure, against the modern cafes of algorithms curating echo chambers where dissent drowns in feeds. It's not about dynasty or debauchery. It's power's pathology, what occurs when sovereignty sheds restraint, attempting to ink out lives, and the miracle when ink bleeds but doesn't blot. The empire endured 369 more years post-Ibrahim, but couldn't expunge 4 princesses armed with quills and quiet. Contemplate that. Ledgers burn, but letters linger. They didn't taste triumph, those women in violet veils, but they etched endurance and marked time honors with exhumation. Ayşe, Fatma, Beyhan, Kaya, they were engineered to vanish, the plan's perfection in their prescribed pallor, voices meant to muffle into the Bosphorus's murmur. But vanish? No, they persist. In Kaya's ring, unearthed cool from archival soil, it's engraving a talisman against tides. In the Muhimmedeftas, those bureaucratic behemoths rebound in Topkapi's scriptorium, their folios whispering of revoked vakufs, reclaimed in 1652 by Turhan's grace. In the ground, where Tunkoku's trowel kissed vellum, turning Istanbul's underbelly to archives light. And now, they're here, with you, ink on screen, words weaving through ether, because you elected to attend, to absorb the amber's afterglow without flinching. You chose, not the spectacle, but the scrutiny, not the shadow, but the spark that defies it. Ey kardeş, nuru iman ile yol al. Zulümün amberi yanar, lakin ruh yanmaz. O sister, journey by faith's light. Tyranny's amber burns, but the soul endures not. You're not mere reader, adrift in digital scrolls your witness, and witnesses are the past's sinew, the thread stitching atrocity to admonition. To witness demands more than gaze. It insists on grapple, on the discomfort of drawing lines from 1643's pavilions to 2025's headlines boardrooms where NDAs veil services, regimes parading kin in loyalty pageants. The machinery evolved, but unslaked. We owe the past not pity, but precision, to past the systems that birthed these rites, from Kafes isolation to modern media blackouts, ensuring no princess's plea yellows unseen. These stories matter because they map the fault lines where power quakes and resilience rises, unbidden, from the rubble. They connect to today's fractures, the Uyghur camps, documented in 2022 satellite leaks, kin coerced in re-education, the Epstein files unsealed in 2019, complicity's roster, a harem of the highborn, what we owe, vigilance, voiced in votes and volumes, empathy, extended across centuries to Ayşe's steady hand pouring quints that burned her throat. Remembrance isn't passive, it's pact, a refusal to let erasure win by default. These women, veiled in history's haze, emerge when we insist demanding their mektups not mold in vaults, but migrate to minds that multiply them. In witnessing, we redeem, not their suffering, but their survival's stubborn script, a blueprint for breaking machines yet to whir. If this narrative stirred something an echo in the amber, a resolve in the right's residue, leave a comment below. What line lingered? Which parallel pricked? Pose your queries. These dialogues, born of darkness, dissected, forge the light that forestalls recurrence. If voices like theirs fierce, faded, but fierce still merit amplification, subscribe. Not for spectacle, but for the silences clamoring to shatter. Every buried firman, every unrolled scroll, every ring reclaimed from ruin. Ibrahim reigned 8 years, erected a apparatus, instructing every aspirant despot in dominion's depravity, humiliation as homage, excess as edict. The schematic survived, inked indelible, but so did their steadfastness.